I hate these favorite questions because today it's this,
I know.
and another day it may be something else.
Hey y'all, it's LJ here, owner and founder of Smart Moms Plan Disney and Smart Moms Travel. We are so glad you're here for another episode of the Smart Moms Plan Disney podcast. Now, here's your host, Allie.
Hey everyone, welcome to a very awesome, fun episode of the Smart Moms Plan Disney podcast. We are covering something that we have learned you all really love to learn about, listen about, and take tips and strategies about. So I can't wait to dive in for all of you. I'm here today with Becki and Stacy, and we're just all smiles. It's early morning as we record, but we feel really excited about this conversation. How are you guys?
I am so thankful today is what is in my heart. Like you just said, we are moms across America. We are kind of everywhere. And my friend Stacy woke up way earlier than she normally does in order to make something happen for me. So Stacy, I love you. Thank you for being my friend. I feel like I should do a Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend.
I feel kind of like a Golden Girls character today, waking up this early. I feel like I probably have a little bit of that look going on, but you're welcome. And I love you too. And, I'm just in the central time zone. You ladies are in the Eastern time zone. And that hour in the morning makes a difference. So, but it's all good. I'm happy to be here. We're going to get through this, and it's going to be a really fun episode.
It was not just for you, Becki, because I actually needed it as well, because we're leaving town later today. We travel a ton in the summer. And today, as we're recording this, we get to go see one of our dancers that is from our dance studio on a world tour. And it's her first professional job. And so we're leaving today for that. I'm really excited. And then we're leaving on another trip this weekend, but we're leaving the kids behind on that one. And I don't think I told you all about where we're going. Do you know? Did I tell you where we're going?
I just assumed you were going to like Atlanta. You're always on the go. So no.
So after the concert, my kids are going to the concert. We're leaving them back with my parents, and we are going on a girls' trip weekend to, we're going on a Dirty Dancing weekend.
What does that mean?
We're going where they filmed Dirty Dancing. And it's
Oh,
like costume.
oh my gosh.
There's like a red carpet and all these like Dirty Dancing themed events going on. We're staying in a
My
cabin.
goodness.
Oh my
That's too
gosh.
fun. At the same campground, at the same.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
that's so fun.
the Mountain Lake Resort. Is that where you're going? The Mountain Lake
Mountain Lake
Resort?
Lodge. Yeah.
Oh, Mountain Lake Lodge. Yes, Sean and I did it for our 20th anniversary. It is something.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, you did the Dirty Dancing weekend?
They didn't have Dirty Dancing weekend the week that we were there, but it is 100%. We went to Mountain Lake Lodge and we went to the restaurant where they sit down and eat. We had the entire restaurant to ourselves because we were there during off season, and we got to sit at the table where Baby and
Johnny.
the waiter comes and talks to them. Right?
Yeah.
And they have pictures all around the restaurant that is just like, this is the table that they were sitting at. This is the place where this happened. And they have a scavenger hunt that you can go around and see all of the different seating locations. But talk about a perfect weekend, because I've told you guys my kids are out traveling with their friends for a summer vacation. They're actually at a lake house in Lake Lure, and they are right around the corner from which is in North Carolina actually, where the lift scene happens in the water.
Oh my gosh, do they need to come see me? Listen, this is hilarious. This is actually so funny. I've been dying laughing over this because that restaurant you're talking about, it's the only restaurant there, I think, from my understanding. This is so perfect for today's episode too, because for that single restaurant at Dirty Dancing weekend, you have to make dining reservations to eat there. And so I made a reservation for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the same restaurant for 3 days. And you can make it for like different locations to sit at and things. But when I was doing it, I was dying laughing because I was like, this is very different than Disney dining, which I do all the time and is what we're talking about today. Because I was just on there booking the same restaurant 3 times in a row for every single day.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much.
It's going to be exciting to get away, and it's just going to be a couple adults. And I mean, do you all ever do that? Take trips away without the kids?
Well, we've got one coming up here pretty soon because we will have all our kids gone, as in they've moved out. So we've got an empty nest trip coming up the end of August, but our first trip where we really left all 5 kids at one time was for my husband's 40th birthday, and we actually went to Universal. We had never been to Universal, and we got some of those great tickets that, like one of these big 5-day ticket things, great deal. We also went down at the same time. Disney used to have a thing called Night of Joy, which was a Christian concert kind of weekend, sort of like one of the other ticketed events, like a Christmas party or something. But we had a week where we did that and did Universal. And I got so homesick for my kids that we cut it short and came home early.
Oh my God.
I know.
You love your kids so hard and it's incredible, but I would venture to say that if you've been on a weekend with Sean, you probably never came home early.
I never leave early, but Stacy, you were talking about being an empty nester and transitioning to different phases of life. I'm feeling that with Macy leaving for college. And I'm wondering if I'm going to start having those more sentimental moments. But I don't know. Sean and we're just those been married for 21 years and crazy, weird, and love people who have no problem leaving our kids to go away for a weekend. We're just weird like that. I don't know. He's my favorite person. I love him so much.
That's really sweet.
I think it's hilarious that you just said we're going to start having sentimental moments. That's like insinuating to all of our listeners that you don't regularly have a sentimental moment. You're like, Laker makes a bowl of cereal and you're like, sir, you did that all on your own.
As a 14-year-old. Although I'm like tearing up listening to Stacy talk about her adventures with her husband. Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so today's episode, we are talking about Disney dining, top 10 tips and things that you as the listeners need to know before your Disney trip. Now, we've covered Disney dining extensively, so many times in so many different ways, and we're going to continue to talk about dining. Because number one, it's complicated. It really can be so complicated. And it's one of those things that can make or break your trip. And also, I think it's like one of the top 3 things that people want on their trip is the great food, the foods and snacks and different novelty things that they hear about prior to their trip. So I'm excited today to sort of create a consolidated list of things that you can reference. Top 10 things you need to know about Disney dining. And spoiler alert, there's more than one restaurant at Disney World. Nothing like Dirty Dancing Weekend, which is, terrible. So do you all do a lot of dining when you go on your trips, or where are you at with that now? You mostly just plow through?
I am so excited that we are the 3 on this particular episode right now, because I know Stacy and I do dining very different. I am a sit down for every meal if I could kind of person.
That's true.
That's way too much food.
Yeah. Some of it is that I have traveled with such a big family, and we've just really had to budget in that area and not be able to just have a lot of sit down. We also have kind of an impatient family and not really wanting to take the time. So I enjoy a good table service dining experience as much as anybody probably, but I don't do it quite as often, I have a feeling, as what Becki or maybe Allie, I don't know. I know Allie is a little bit, I don't feel like you're taking a sit down dining every day either.
Really depends on who I'm with.
Yeah.
It depends on the trip, but ideally my family, we are taking like one sit down a day. So, okay, the number one thing that we put on our list was lingo, the phrases and the basics, the things that you don't even know are related to dining. In y'all's opinion, what is that most important one?
For me, I think it's knowing that there are so many different types of dining. For instance, table service, quick service, character meals, lounges, snacks. There is so much lingo around Disney dining. And some of them, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's easy to miss out on some pretty awesome opportunities at Disney.
Yeah. And I think another one is the abbreviation, right? ADR. What does that even mean?
Yes.
And what does that mean, Stacy?
Well, that would be advanced dining reservations, which is just the idea of getting your dining reservations in advance.
I think it's so funny because advanced dining reservations are the way that you lock in those sit down meals that we were just talking about. And I had somebody she was asking me like, well, we just want to go up to a restaurant and sit down. Can't we do that? We don't know what we're going to be hungry for at Magic Kingdom right now. And I was like, I understand. I get it. But you can't just walk up to restaurants. That's such a common misconception. Like sometimes you can get walk-up availability, like maybe, but it's in your best interest. And at any hard to get locations, it's going to be very difficult to eat there if you don't have one of those advanced dining reservations.
Really, the first two things that we need everyone to understand about Disney dining is the lingo of Disney dining and the timelines of Disney dining. And between those two things, let's inch into other things. But if you don't know those things, you're going to miss out on some pretty awesome opportunities at Disney World.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, Becki, there are table service, quick service, the character meals, lounges, snacks. You mentioned that. Also understanding which is which, right? Because like I've had so many people say, well, we want to get a reservation for Restaurantosaurus. Somebody did ask me that once. And I was like, don't need a reservation there, you know? And so understanding which restaurants you can eat at without a reservation and which ones you do, which if it's a quick service meal, just by rule of thumb, or a snack spot, you're not going to need a reservation. But most lounges will need either some sort of walk-up list that you can't do until arrival, or like the Space 220 lounge would require an advanced reservation. So lounges are going to be one of those things that vary in how you're going to access them. And then table service, you're going to need that reservation. So figuring out very first which restaurants you're wanting, and that's under the entire umbrella of options, and then figuring out which ones are going to need a reservation, which leads into that number two thing, the ADRs and that timeline that you were mentioning.
Yes, exactly. And those timelines are important because different people have different opportunities within those timelines, right? So if you are visiting Disney World 60 days before either the day you want to eat or 60 days before you check in, is when you're going to be working to get those ADRs.
Yeah. And we talked a lot about this on one of our very first episodes. So the ADRs happen 60 days from your check-in day. Okay, that's the most basic element of that timeline that as somebody that's planning a Disney trip really needs to know. So immediately once I book a Disney trip, I am looking at my check-in date and then I'm subtracting 60 days immediately. Well, actually I'm asking Siri, what's 60 days before November 7th or whatever. And so that way, this is my day that I can do my dining. It's sort of like the old Genie Plus system, which I'm not mourning. I feel really good that that's gone in the way that the second, the millisecond that it hits, those things open up and unlock and you have this world of dining now available to you. And it does feel very stressful, but that's why you have a Smart Moms agent, because we do it for you and actually doesn't really stress us out at all. But for most guests, it is a very anxious moment in the planning process because there are some restaurants that are so high demand that at certain times of your trip, it can be harder to achieve. So what I mean by that, when we're talking basic timeline, and this part always feels a bit confusing, I think, to people, so I'm going to try to explain it pretty well. 60 days prior to your trip is when all of those restaurants unlock for booking for a 10-day window in addition to that day. So if I am checking in on November 7th, 60 days prior to that, dining reservations will open for November 7th through the 17th. And for most trips, 10-day window is going to cover it. That is for on-site guests only. I don't believe I said that a few moments ago. If you are staying off-site, meaning you don't have a package with a Disney World Resort hotel, then your dining is actually opening 60 days from each day you would like to eat. So that factor right there, if dining is very important to your vacation, you will probably have a hard time on dining days getting those reservations that you want, because people that are on site have been booking those days for, up to 10 days before you. And so those priority windows are part of the timeline, and your specific timeline directly relates to where you're staying. So once again, if you're staying off site, it's 60 days by the day. You don't get to make several days at once. If you're staying on site, you do get to make several days at once, starting at that 60-day mark at 7 a.m.
But even that 7 a.m. can feel confusing sometimes because it's actually 6 a.m. if you're making your reservations online or on the app, and 7 a.m. if you're doing it by calling into Disney Dining. And so most people are probably going to be shooting for that 6 a.m. slot.
I think another thing that's in the realm of just knowing your time frames of something is how long your dinner will take at different places. If you're at a character dining, you're going to take your meal time is going to be a longer time frame for your day than maybe a table service where there's not a character meal, like at a Coral Reef or something, for example. I feel like Coral Reef, I remember eating there last year and just thinking how quick we were in and out. But then there are other times that you're really not in and out so quickly. So just kind of knowing how long your meal will take at different places and to kind of prepare for that. Some you just do not need to have something tightly scheduled. If you're going to leave the park to go eat, how long that's going to take, if you're trying to get back for something, for a show or something, there are definitely timeline related things you should investigate a little bit as you're planning your trip.
I don't even think it has to be about leaving the park for knowing how long it's going to take. If you are back in the American Pavilion and you want to, and you have a reservation at Space 220 in Epcot, that's going to be a bit of a journey to get
Yeah.
the other side of the park. And so making sure you're or giving yourself a window to transport your family to wherever it is that you're going to be dining.
So in relation, Becki, to what you just said, location of restaurant in a park, with Disney's new Lightning Lane system, it's all coming together so beautifully, right? Because at 60 days from your trip, or if you're offsite, 60 days from the day you want to eat, you're making those reservations for dining. So you already have that all set in stone. And then if you're an on-site guest, 7 days prior to your trip, you get to start making those lightning lanes, those pre-selections for the lightning lane of specific attractions in each park that you're going to be visiting. And if you don't understand that, make sure you listen to our lightning lane episode because we break it down a lot. And now that that timeline is spreading out so nicely, you can say, okay, we're going to be at Space 220 at this time. So we want to grab our Soarin', maybe our test track, different things that are up in the front area of the park so that you're over by where your dining is at that same time. So you can really start to not be making a crochet project across the entire park and weaving this big tapestry.
Disney's even getting to the point that the systems are going to see each other in a way that it's not going to let you overlap them. Previously, when you were doing Genie Plus, there was a really good chance that a dining reservation and a Genie Plus selection or an individual lightning lane could overlap. Sounds like that's going to be a thing of the past.
Also, understanding, and I've talked about this on the show before, but on a dining top 10 things to know, it's very important to repeat. You have a 2-hour cancellation window. So if you made a dining reservation 60 days ago or 65 days ago, and now you're in the park and you just had a snack you didn't know you were going to have 60 days ago, and you're no longer wanting that pizza that you thought you were going to want, and you made a reservation for, you have 2-hour window to decide that from the start time of your meal. And if you try to cancel within that 2-hour window, you're going to get charged $10 per person on the reservation. So unfortunately, we had a rather large reservation for like 12, and I lost track of time. It was on one of our team trips and got charged $10
per person.
for 12 of us. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer. Also, I have clients often ask, and I think we kind of already touched on this, but I just want to reiterate, ADRs are not needed for those quick service restaurants. And so know that if you want to be an on the fly, eat where you are, quick service is there for you. And we'll talk more about how to capitalize on those quick service options. It's not something you need to super stress if you're planning on just walking up to the counter and ordering your food, unlike sitting down for a character meal or a table service. And then right along with those two differences, if you're doing quick service, definitely the more affordable way to go. But if you're going to be eating at a table service or a character meal, you also need to realize the prices are going to not include tipping. So you need to make sure you're building that into your budget.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I think knowing all of these things and helping with that budget building is just going to be a really great strategy. Because I know along with dining, that's another thing that most of our listeners really want to understand more. Okay, so we're at number 3. The next one that's so important for people traveling to Disney World to know are, what are those high demand ADRs? What are the hard to get advanced dining reservations? Because sometimes I think people have it completely backwards. People will say, I really want Rainforest Cafe. Do you think you're going to be able to get it? I'm like, probably, not really worried about that one. But there are some on site that are very tough. You know, you get on at that 60-day mark and in seconds it could be gone for your entire stay. What would you say, Becki, are the hardest ones for you to get for families that you're working with that you see, or even for yourself?
Cinderella's Royal Table is always going to be super high demand. I find the Topolino's at the Riviera is also a pretty high demand character meal. But outside of character meals, one of my very favorite restaurants on all of Disney property at Disney Springs, Chef Art Smith's Homecoming, is a really hard reservation to get as well.
It is.
Yeah, Stace, what were we going to say about that?
Chef Art's Homecoming, without a G, by the way, Homecoming. I noticed you said it just right.
Yeah.
Just right with that homecoming. It's so delicious, and it is a tough one to get. I actually have had trouble getting Raglan Road at Disney Springs as well, and I feel like it's one that people don't really talk about as much, but I've had trouble getting it, but I have it scheduled for my next trip, so I'm super excited about that. And Space 220 is another really tough one to get. You hear mixed reviews on it, and yet it's still a tough one. It seems like it's always full. So it's, I guess, such a neat, unique dining experience. And then speaking of unique dining experiences, things like Hoop De Doo Review can be a little tough to get as well. And, you know, those are just some that you want to have a plan for, and talking about what day of your trip you want to try to get them. Putting your tougher ones to get maybe later in your trip so you might have a little better availability. So all of this really does come with some nuances, and that's why we as Smart Moms travel agents really love to help you with those decisions. What do you have a hard time getting, Allie?
Yak and Yeti,
Mm.
lunch and dinner, I think kind of tricky. It's really just so good and really among the best food at Animal Kingdom is where you can find that one. So I think that one's really tough. I also think it has to do with which meal, right? Like a restaurant that's really tough for breakfast may not be as tough for dinner. So really knowing which meal you want. I used to find that storybook dining with Snow White was really tough. I've actually seen more availability there than recently than I used to, I feel like. So maybe that one's getting a bit easier. And gosh, it's delicious. It's one of my faves. And the boathouse can be tough over at Disney Springs. So many at Disney Springs can be hard to get, which is, it's a fun, way to spend a down day or whatnot. But yeah, I think that covers a lot of them. And of course, there are some other really hard ones, but we definitely covered some of what I would consider the hardest in each kind of meal bracket. And Stacy touched on this. She said, plan your hard to get ones toward the end of your trip. And that specifically relates to that on-site guest 60-day plus 10 rule that I was talking about. So that's why that rule is very important. Because if you're an on-site guest, the 10th day of your trip or the 7th day of your trip or whatever the farthest day out of your trip is, the fewest amount of people have been booking for that day, right? Because your day one is somebody else's day 7 and they've been booking it for 7 days. And so that's why sort of strategizing out the hard ones, if you can, if it works in your plans towards the end. And this conversation really just helps listeners understand the level of strategized thinking it can really take.
Yeah. And the true benefit of dining in relationship to choosing to stay on property, it can't be understated if things like that are of high importance to you. If your little girl is dreaming of going to Cinderella's Royal Table, or you as a mom are dreaming of taking your daughter or your son to Cinderella's Royal Table to go live out that royal moment inside of the castle, the chances of getting it 60 days out from the day you want to be there is not likely, because everybody who's staying on property has already booked their entire trip and have probably already taken up all of that, which leaves you in the position of now I have to try to get it through a cancellation process.
I do think I heard Allie mention this, but I feel like it was quickly mentioned. So let's go ahead and point out that when we say you're staying off property and you're having to book your dining reservations, you cannot do that 10 days worth of your trip. You're doing one day at a time, meaning that if you're trying to go on the 7th day of the month, you call 60 days before then. And then you want to go on the 8th day of the month, you call the next day 60 days before then. And you want to go on the 9th, you call 60 days before that. And I say call, well, you could also get online trying to get these reservations, but you are trying to get a reservation every day of your trip, 60 days before every day of your trip. And that is a nuisance. So staying on property prevents that. And it's just that's just a real perk that you don't always think about, but it is a great perk.
Yeah, and it's actually wise that you try online before you would ever call for a reservation, because the online system does open quite earlier than the phone lines. So hopefully you never have to actually do that, but it is an option, of course. Are there any meals that you think are hard to get and you're kind of like, why? Like it's a little overrated.
I'm going to probably lose my Disney card for this, but Chef Mickey's is just not it for me. People book it so far out, and that's not to say you can't have a good time going there. It's at a great location in the Contemporary, but there are so many better Mickey meals on property, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and going with that statement, Chef Mickey, I actually have found is a pretty easy reservation to get. I don't necessarily think that's because it's not a good, like people agree with you that it's not a good meal, because I think you're right. Most people do think it's good. I think the reason it's more available is because it's a character meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or breakfast and dinner kind of starts early, but because of that, you have a wider range in your day and in your trip to actually eat with the characters there, which is why I think it's a bit easier to get. Like Topolino's is way harder to get than Chef Mickey's, and it's a way better meal, in my opinion. And listen to our character dining episodes where we ranked the character dining, and you can understand why. But I don't think most people agree, and I'm so glad you said that, because I think it's overrated. I don't know that, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, what do I think is overrated? And it's so hard because some of the meals I don't think are very good are rated the way they are because of their general experience. You know what I mean? Like the experience of Cinderella's royal table is really not overrated. Being in the castle with princesses, that's Disney, Disney, Disney. That's what you envision. It's amazing. And that's not overrated. It's not my favorite meal. So I guess if we're saying that it's like this spectacular thing because of the food, then I guess I could say that's overrated. But because the experience is so spectacular, it's like I can't really say that.
I feel like that may be the situation a little bit with Space 220 as well. I mean, it's unique and it's themed real space food, so which is kind of neat, but it's not particularly like, oh, my favorite meal of my trip was Space 220. But the experience itself is so unique and so cool that I kind of drift towards saying it's a little overrated, but it's also one of those experiences with anybody ever wants to go on it. I'm like, yeah, you should see it. Like it is cool. You really should do it. But it probably is a one and done type of thing.
I wish that was the case for my son because he's 14 and every time we go to Epcot, he says, "Can we go to Space 220?" I'm like, "One day, child, you're going to understand budgets."
Yeah.
Because it is so expensive, but he loves science and the food for him, he's enjoyed it. Even like the cauliflower that's there is one of the appetizers. He loves it. It's so weird the things that he's willing to eat there, but it's his jam. Over in Patreon, actually, one of the videos I recently posted was Laker talking about his favorite restaurant, and Space 220 made one of those lists.
That's very cool. And that's part of the beauty of Disney and what they have to offer is that really is so many different styles and tastes for so many different people. And I don't ever want to poo-poo anything too much with these different choices because, I'm also with you. Like my first thought of something overrated, I picked Chef Mickey's. That's like where I'd go to immediately. And yet I know some people really, really love it. So, it's just different strokes for different folks. And I love that Disney offers so many opportunities.
Except for Rainforest Cafe. You're not allowed to go there because there's too many. It's too much of a chain. You got to do a more authentic Disney moment than that, in my opinion. So, Becki, you mentioned posting that video of Laker in the Patreon community. If you're not already in the Patreon community, we would love it if you jumped over there and joined us. By becoming a Diamond Mine subscriber, you can unlock access to our monthly guides that we offer here as a podcast team. And it's full of great resources. They're companions to these episodes that we release weekly. Not every episode has a guide, but that's part of the fun of it, is to find out which guides you're going to get each month. So come on over there and join that fun party. You can find the link in our show notes. And before we jump to a quick break, I want to remind you that maybe you could take this moment to leave us a quick 5-star review and leave us an actual review because it helps us so much. Recently, our listener Rachel C04 wrote, "Listening to the Smart Moms pod is like chatting all things Disney with your best friends. As someone who also loves Disney and all the planning process, this podcast never fails to cover the important information, but does so in such a fun, relaxing way that helps make planning much more fun. This pod is one I listen to weekly and will replay episodes often. So thank you for my connection to Smart Moms Plan Disney, and specifically to my Smart Moms agent, Brandy Callahan, at Pixie Dusting and Magic Wands on social media. And she has been such a blessing to my Disney process. How do I do this planning without her on my previous trips? She is knowledgeable, down to earth, and always willing to help. Thank you, Smart Moms. Love that. Good job, Brandy, your Smart Moms agent. So awesome. And thank you for sharing all of that. We feel relaxed when we are talking Disney, and especially when we're talking Disney with one another. So if that's coming through and helping you, we are super happy about it. We are just getting way here in our top 10 list. We're going to take a quick break and then keep it going.
Hi, Smarties. Carly here from the podcast. You hear us talking about the right way to do Disney, but let's be honest, taking notes isn't exactly easy while you're busy momming and on the go. There's an easy way to get all of those tips organized to simplify your vacation. Check out our 4-part guide bundle available now in our Patreon shop. Also, if getting guides is something you like to help with your planning, joining our Patreon as a Diamond Mine subscriber gives you a new Disney guide every month. Either way, we have got your back on knowing how to plan your park days so you feel like the expert before you walk in the gates.
Hey, wait. I know you're ready to get back to the podcast, but I've got something very simple for you to do. Join my Facebook group, Disney Planning Made Simple. I'm Stacy, one of your podcast hosts, and I have a sweet, friendly Facebook group made for those of us who thrive in the simple pleasures of life, things like family, food, and Disney. Join at facebook.com/groups/Disney Made Simple, or follow with the link in the show notes. We'll be so happy to see you there.
Hey there, friends. I'm Katie Boone, one of your podcast co-hosts. I'd love to invite you to join my Facebook Disney planning community called Planning Disney with Babies, Toddlers, and Preschoolers. In my group, I love discussing all the aspects of planning your magical vacation with little ones. Find my community at facebook.com/groups/Plan Disney with Little Ones. Again, that's facebook.com/groups/Plan Disney with Little Ones. When you join, don't forget to tell me you heard about my group on the podcast. See you there.
I have to acknowledge that Allie is freaking out about a spider or something.
I'll say, what is it? What are you seeing?
It's a big bug, and I tried to kill it, but underneath the card I'm trying to kill it with, it's just hard, and it's not. It won't die, and so I pushed hard, and it punched and cracked.
Ugh, that's so gross.
Oh my gosh. Is it dead?
I don't know. I'm scared to look.
Is the paper moving?
No, but last time I had it under there, it crawled out like 5 seconds later.
That's disgusting.
I'm sorry,
no.
guys.
You're going to have to look. You have to get it gone, or else it's going to haunt you the entire episode.
I can't look. No, it's going crunch, crunch, crunch. Oh my God, I've never heard such a crunchy bug in my life. Sorry. All right, we are tackling the top 10 things that we as podcast team think you need to know as a Disney traveler or Disney fanatic before you take your Disney trip as it relates to dining at Disney World. So we have done our top 3 so far. I feel very good about these top 3. You have to understand these to have a good dining experience. Number 1 was understanding the basics, which reservations or restaurants or experiences qualify as quick service, lounges, sit downs, etc. And the lingo, ADRs, things like that you need to know for your planning. Number 2, knowing your timeline. Where are you staying? And how does that relate to when you can make your dining reservation? What does 60 days before mean for you on your trip, and how do you know? Also, your actual reservation times as it relates to the lightning lanes that you'll be picking. So everything related to that timeline as you're deciding when and where you're going to eat. And of course, number 3, knowing the highest demand ADRs and how to strategize to get them. So make your list and then figure out which ones are the hardest out of your favorites, and then kind of work backwards from there. I feel good about that. I feel like if you follow those top 3 strategies, you will really start to unwind your ideas into a really great plan, solid plan for your family. Okay, number 4 is a doozy. Number 4 is so complicated when you're a first-time traveler. Do you agree?
Yes. The My Disney Experience app, this is probably the key thing. It's actually going to be right up there as being like a number 1 thing in your importance. But the My Disney Experience app is so valuable and so powerful. There are so many things that you can do in your planning time as you're leading up to your trip, as well as while you're on your trip. When I was talking about knowing how far you needed to go to your restaurants that you were choosing or how long it was going to take, sometimes you hear people talking about a restaurant, but you don't really even know what type of restaurant it is. Like we talk about Columbia Harbor House. Let's go to Columbia Harbor House when we're at Magic Kingdom. Well, you might assume that that's a sit down restaurant, but if you use your app, you can look at it and see that it is not a table service, it is a quick service. And so just knowing those types of things through your app when you're planning is very helpful. Use that magnifying glass, type in the names. You can even type in, let's say it's your off day and you're going to be at your resort. You can type in the name of your resort, push that search button, and it's going to pull up your restaurants available for you at your resort. You can go in ahead of time and look at your menus, and not just the menus of what's available as far as like, this is going to be something your family enjoys, but you can see the pricing. And then our favorite thing that I know we all take full advantage of on our trips is mobile ordering. And we haven't really mentioned that and touched on that very much, but your mobile ordering that's available with your quick service dining is so key. Getting in there early, making an early mobile order can be so helpful for your hangry self as you're going throughout your day and already having that order placed.
Yeah, Stacy, when you specifically say making an early mobile order, you don't mean making a mobile order for 9 a.m., which is a good idea. But you mean go in at 9 a.m. and create a mobile order for like 1 p.m. or whenever you think you're going to be hungry, strategized around other dining that you have and lightning lanes that you have.
Exactly.
My oldest daughter gets seriously hangry. Like when she hasn't eaten enough, it's a whole different human being. And if we can just get her something, she does a complete flip. So we have to strategize, because if you wait until that hangry moment, you're going to go in to make a mobile order and it's not going to be available. The times fill up. They just do. And so it's part of the strategy to know how to mobile order and when to mobile order. Your app really is your saving grace for all things dining.
And then knowing things about your app with this mobile ordering, and just knowing, you start to see that, oh, I may not make it back to the reservation time for my mobile order. And knowing that you can go in there and switch it up using that app can make it so convenient if you just know that these things are available to you. These tools are available to you.
The drop-down menu from the map feature that allows you to sort just what dining you're looking at is such a powerful tool. In fact, one of the things I really love doing is looking at where I'm at and then just looking at what dining's around me. And sometimes I'll find hidden treasures that you didn't know exist, but also you're able to see what the hours of those restaurants are in the app. My daughter was Disney bounding as Seven Dwarf one day, and she really wanted the Seven Dwarf ice cream that was available at the Storybook Treats in Fantasyland. And we went back there to get it and they were closed. And it was so sad because she wanted it. And we hadn't used the app to see that their hours are set and you need to make sure that you are getting there during those set timelines.
And that's not very uncommon. There actually are several things around the parks that have not just open to close hours. So that really is important. I'm sorry she missed that.
We were able to get it on another trip, but she just wasn't Disney bounding anymore for that one.
Yeah.
You mentioned the map, Becki, and when you open your My Disney Experience app, you can navigate to the map with the little locations button at the bottom of the home screen. And the drop-down menu, when you do filter it to dining, as you mentioned, it will also show you, it'll add like a little cell phone icon if you can create a mobile order. And so just a good rule of thumb for you as you're planning, a quick service spot that has mobile ordering is not going to also be a spot that takes a reservation. Those are different things. And so that's going to also help you kind of unravel in your mind what you're looking at. Not that every quick service spot has mobile ordering. So you might want to listen to our quick service dining in the parks episode. But something that we really like to do also is we will quick service mobile order breakfast prior to getting on our Disney transportation and then be eating Mickey waffles on the way to the park. Because sometimes once you get to the park and you're trying to rope drop and get all these attractions in, and then you're like, oh, we just need to do this one really fast because this wait time is low. And then, oh, we need to do this one because this wait time is low. And you're just kind of bouncing between. Well, before you know it, 2 hours in the park have passed and now you're starving. So strategizing early ways to head that off, very important.
Also with the mobile ordering, something I think that is super helpful for parents in particular, especially if you have young kids, but really anybody, is using that mobile order takes away the I'm standing in line and everybody's just gawking at way too much overstimulation of what the menu is when you're standing in line. It lets the choice happen in a controlled environment rather than chaos of standing in line at a restaurant. And you have all of the individual little things about what specifically the individual people want figured out. Makes life so much easier, gives you more time back to your day. And time is money when you're at Disney. So use that mobile ordering.
Exactly. And just one more thing here with the My Disney Experience app, because it is such a crutch for you on your vacation. It not only allows you to do your mobile ordering, but it's also where you can make your dining reservations. And just a really hot tip for a moment, because we've talked so much about how important it is to get your reservations at that 60-day mark. Some things are very hard to get. If you do feel like you want to sit down, spur of the moment, you can use that little plus sign button at the bottom of your home screen in your app. You will find a mobile order button right there when you click that plus sign, but above that, it will say check dining availability. And you can literally just check the dining availability for the time you're looking at right there where you're standing. And you might be surprised at some last minute reservations that do pop up. It's not something I would bank on, but it's definitely something if you're really hungry and you want to sit, you should be doing, because people drop things and things become available last minute. And if you just navigate to all dining, you might be surprised at what pops up. So using that tool inside there to see what's available, to see what you can mobile order, all really good things to plan for your budget when you look at those menus and pricing. The My Disney Experience app is your entire trip. It's how you run smoothly, and it definitely is how your dining runs smoothly. All right, number 5. Should you do the dining plan?
I think that the answer to this question is very specific to your family's situation. However, I have to say what I think made me fall in love with Disney dining to the level that I love Disney dining is because I did the Disney dining plan on my very first Disney trip, and it allowed me the freedom to go and try things that I wasn't worried about the price. I am a person that is like, I need to make sure my money's going as far as it can. I'm going to look at every way to save. When you're actually at Disney, there's very few ways to reduce the cost of your meal. You're not going to have a coupon when you walk into Space 220 or something like that. You're going to have to plan that way. But for me, the simplicity of using a Disney dining plan allows me to be on vacation and say yes more easily without stressing that price tag.
Yeah, I love that you said it really is dependent on your family, because that is the truth. What types of foods does your family like to eat? What plans will you have? And we have covered the Disney dining plan on the pod before. And, maybe we're going to have some more Disney dining plan episodes coming your way. So it is something that we want to make sure you really understand and can process to help best determine if it's right for you. But I think that goes into the top 10 things you must know is it right for you? And while we're not going to necessarily answer that yes or no right now, some of the factors you want to consider are, does it help my budgeting? And does it allow me to have more relaxation on my trip? And also determining which of those two, the Disney dining plan and the quick service dining plan, which of those two makes most sense based on the types of experiences you want. So listening to our other dining plan episodes and also talking to your Smart Moms agent about what it could mean for you inside your package is a really good tip for all things dining. Okay. Number 6. This is not one that in my family I have to be too mindful of, but I have friends that I travel with, and I love when I'm with my friends that have allergies and dietary restrictions when they're eating at Disney World, because I just sent a friend of mine on a Disney cruise, their very first one ever. And she has 2 kids with extreme eating restrictions, basically allergies and things that they have to be so mindful of. And she's like, there's literally nowhere else in the world that we can go and just be. And that's it. End of sentence. Just be. Like, we don't have to worry at all about anything, cross-contamination or my kids getting sick or not being able to find something on the menu. There is nothing more friendly than Disney when it comes to allergies. Am I right?
Yes. And you saying you love going and traveling with your people who have dietary issues just makes me laugh, because as somebody who has very severe food allergies, I always feel like I'm the hindrance when I'm with anybody, because we can't have peanuts, we can't have tree nuts, we can't have mango. Like, all of these things could put me in the hospital. And I feel like I don't want to say, but I have to say because I don't want to ruin the experience. And so I truly do feel that in my heart. Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Cruise, there is nowhere on this planet that cares so much about allergens and making sure that everybody has what they need, like Disney. They take care of you. And so what I, as a full-time allergy person, it's always at the front of my mind, have the best tip I can say is to talk to the staff before you order. They're going to have a list of ingredients. Sometimes that you'll have the option to talk to the chef if there's any kind of concern. And if not the chef, somebody from the kitchen staff can talk to you. Also, just the person taking your order, if you're at a quick service, if you're at a snack location, everywhere you're eating something, having access to anything to eat, they have the availability for you to see exactly what ingredients are in that, which is a huge weight lifted off for anybody who knows what dealing with those allergies or dietary restrictions look like.
If you have a rare allergy, I did have a client who does have a very rare allergy to a specific kind of oil. She cannot have certain oils in her food and what they're cooked with. And she knew from previous experiences that Disney does use a lot of this oil. She knew that it was not something easily changed the day of, but we were able to email them in advance and tell them what days she was going to be there, and they were prepared for her. She had the best time. She could not believe how much Disney cared for her, how they were expecting her, how they had prepared ahead of time, knowing she was coming. And so just don't be afraid of speaking up. And I don't have this from my own experiences so much, but I don't want anybody to feel like they can't go do something because, and like you mentioned, Becki, like you feel nervous that you're going to ruin other people's experiences because of your needs. Don't feel that way at Disney. Speak up and enjoy.
Yeah, I can't believe that. Actually, you never told me that story before, and I know how accommodating they are, and I have seen it, but to have things pre-ready for you, like in advance,
Yeah.
like unbelievable. I mean, don't be afraid of it. Okay. Number 7, dining at the resorts. Understanding what types of food will be available at your resorts, and it goes by level of resort class, right? So value resorts, moderate resorts, and deluxe resorts are the 3 categories. We've talked about them on the show extensively. Your value resorts are going to have quick service only. They don't have sit down reservation meals. It's cafeteria style, mobile order style, wide range selection style type food. Also, we'll have a pool bar where they usually have some bites to eat by the pool as well. So that is great. And you will be well fed, but you're not going to have, a specialty meal at your resort. You may have to travel to a different resort if you have a down day or you're wanting that resort dining. Moderate resorts, for the most part, are quick service, but some have those table service locations and lounges. So it's important to know where you're staying. For instance, when I was just recently staying at Caribbean Beach Resort, they have a sit-down reservation there. Sebastian's Bistro requires a reservation. They also had a pool bar to order from, as well as that quick service cafeteria style. So actually so much food available at that resort. It's moderate. So, I think knowing in advance the types of foods that are going to be offered at your resort. And then when you get to deluxe, you're going to have mobile order options for sure, maybe more than one. And you can have more than one at a moderate resort as well. But you're also very likely going to have multiple table service options and lounges, which is so convenient.
I also feel like when you're at those deluxe table service restaurants, I feel like the level of theming is just upgraded. It feels like you're eating at a really fun themed to whatever it is. We recently stayed at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, and we ate out by the pool at their table service meal, and just the theming, having this geyser going off by us, overlooking the lake. I felt like I was in Yellowstone. I was like, this is amazing.
I'm glad you mentioned Wilderness Lodge, Becki, because they have a character meal and they have another immersive fun meal which is Whispering Canyon. And the character meal is Storybook Dining with Snow White. And then they also have an incredible mobile order out by the pool. Quick service, maybe one of the best that there are like on property. It's so good. Geyser Point. And then they also have that cafeteria style. So you can spend a resort day there and have so many different options. And it's important also for listeners to know that you do not have to be a resort guest at these locations in order to eat at these restaurants.
True. And Wilderness Lodge also has the Territory Lounge, which is a really, really great lounge option, which can be walk up without having to have a reservation. There is just a leveled up dining experience staying at a deluxe resort. Just the availability is exponentially better than any other option at a value or a moderate.
Yeah. So dining, what's going to be available to you at your resort, and just kind of that knowledge that you can eat there even if you're not a guest there. That's how you're going to eat at Chef Mickey's, right? You don't have to be staying at the Contemporary, which is where Chef Mickey's is, in order to eat at Chef Mickey's. So that's really great. And like I said, if you are staying at that resort, it just levels up your experience for your down days and your later park start days or your earlier end park days, to know that you're going back to your home for the week and have that option.
And one other thing with these deluxe resorts is you can have character meals on a rest day and not have to get into the park. You know, if you have a meal planned at a park, you have to have a ticket for that day. You've got to use, you know, one of your days that you're going into the park. And there are Topolino's at Riviera is a character meal. Cape May at Beach Club. We've got Storybook Dining at Wilderness. Ohana is at Polynesian. Chef Mickey, of course, is at Contemporary. 1900 Park Fair is at Grand Floridian. So you have these character meals that are available without having to go into a park, which are so great on a rest day. And talking about not having to use up a lot of your park day to experience the longer meal, those are great to know.
That's great, Stacy. And I might even go so far to say that my favorite character meals are not in parks.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Except I do love Tusker House at Animal Kingdom. And you know what is something that I think we as experts and Smart Moms agents take for granted and know, but other people actually, I think, don't realize sometimes, is that you cannot go to those restaurants if you don't have a park ticket. That's what Stacy was saying. I actually did have somebody I was working with get very, very confused on that. Don't think that you can just make a Cinderella's Royal Table reservation and go up to the gates and be like, oh, I don't have a ticket, but I'm just going in to eat. Like, no, cannot do it.
No.
You cannot enter a park just to eat.
Great point.
Okay. Number 8, Disney Springs. Don't overlook Disney Springs for dining. I'm not a big shopper with Disney Springs personally because I don't love doing things that I can do at home when I'm on vacation. That's just me. I understand that that's not everyone for sure, but you know, when I'm at Disney Springs, I'm there to do 2 things, and it's go to the world of Disney or to eat a really good meal, actually to do both. And if the drone show is going on, then see the drone show, but you know, that's not an all the time thing. The all the time things are go to World of Disney, which is the big old Disney store, and have a good meal. And some of the best food on Disney property can be found at Disney Springs for not only quality of food, like we already talked about the Boathouse and Chef Art's Homecoming, but also for the experiences. People love T-Rex. What a terrible place to eat. Not good at all. Like, so not good. But so many people are like, I have to take my dinosaur lover to T-Rex. And I can't argue that. That's not true.
Yeah, to each their own on that. But I love the evolution of Disney Springs in my own personal life because I am a Disneyland girl. And when I would go to Disney Springs, I'm like, this just isn't downtown Disney. I wanted it to feel different. But over the last year and a half, especially since we started this podcast and it's challenged me to try new things, I have fallen in love with Disney Springs for dining. There are so many amazing restaurants in Disney Springs.
Yeah, I highly encourage it. We've talked so much, and I'll just give one more shout out to Chef Art's Homecoming because I haven't eaten there yet. I've said that on the show. Because I always go with Boathouse, but lately I've been stacking with Chef Art's, and then something comes up, and I don't know. I haven't done it, but it's like my next number one thing to prioritize. And so for any Smart Moms travel agents listening today, the Hidden Mickey will be home. Okay, number 9, the top quick service location in each park. Important to know because you don't want to miss it, whatever it is. And we did cover each park in a very specific way here on the podcast. You can go back and listen to our quick service brackets and how we determined, based on our bracketing information, what the best quick service in each park was. But we didn't just do that. We didn't come to each decision just on food. And I don't want to give too much away about those episodes if you haven't listened. So make sure you take that time. But when I'm talking just specifically food and not other factors that can be thrown in to determine what makes it the best, just on food alone, what are your favorites in each park? Quickly. Stacy, what's your favorite at Magic Kingdom?
I'm going to go Columbia Harbor House, even though I could probably make an argument for another one. I'll leave that up for Becki because I think she's going to take it. But I really do love Columbia Harbor House. It is a must have when we go.
Becki, what about you for Magic and Epcot?
Pecos Bill is definitely my favorite at Magic Kingdom. And then if we were heading over to Epcot, that's such a hard one because there is so many great dining options over there. I probably would say Connections though in Epcot. I love so much about the food, the atmosphere, everything at Connections.
Yeah, not my favorite, but you can listen to that episode to figure out why. And what about at Animal Kingdom, Becki?
Animal Kingdom, I have to do Yak and Yeti. Although I'm the lone ranger on this podcast that actually really does enjoy Restaurantosaurus. I know you can judge me.
And you know what, though? I want to make a point of clarity because you just said Yak and Yeti is your favorite quick service. And I previously said Yak and Yeti is one of the hardest sit-down reservations to get. So that could sound very confusing to listeners. Is this the only restaurant on property that's both?
The creperie the creperie in France.
Yeah. Yeah, that good call on that. Yeah, I didn't think it could possibly be, but it is probably the best that can be both. You can get a table service restaurant reservation, or you can do it quick service. Stacy, what about you? Best quick service Animal Kingdom?
My favorite Animal Kingdom is, this is easy for me. Favorite quick service is Flame Tree Barbecue. Love, love, love to eat there. I get excited about the idea of it on an Animal Kingdom day. I know I'm going to eat that. It's delicious.
Yep. And lastly, Hollywood Studios. Becki.
I love nothing more in Hollywood Studios than Fantasmic. And so my natural pull to where I want to grab food, and it's so easily accessible from pretty much anywhere you are in the park, is Sunset Boulevard. That food options, there's like 4 or 5 different options, and everybody can be happy, and you can mobile order and you can take it into your Fantasmic meal. It just makes me happy.
Yep, me too. And Stacy, your favorite at Hollywood Studios?
You know, on the episodes before, I feel like I was really pulling for the ABC commissary to get more love than it did. And we love ABC commissary. I know it feels a little vanilla for a lot of people, but we love the ABC commissary and love going in there and having a nice air conditioned sit down meal. And I'm gonna go with that one for today.
Yeah, so I think just knowing what's available and, we all have different choices. Just right there, you saw everybody has kind of a different selection, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but Docking Bay 7, the Star Wars restaurant at Hollywood Studios, super important if you have a Star Wars fan to know that that's there. Satuli Canteen, same idea for Pandora World of Avatar over at Animal Kingdom. So I think just really using the My Disney Experience app, as we discussed before, to know what quick service options are going to be available. Where can you get breakfast? Because believe it or not, that can be really difficult to find. And if you're just clicking through every single restaurant, like which one has a breakfast? Where can I get an egg? Like you don't want to wait until you're on your vacation to find an egg at Magic Kingdom. So really, I would prioritize gaining that knowledge ahead of time. All right. And number 10, just the flip side of that same coin, the top table service option in each park. This is this is by family, right? Like everybody's going to have a different answer to this. Are you looking for the best food? Are you looking for the best experience? Are you looking for something that's going to fit the budget the best? What does best mean? And I think you using the My Disney Experience app to know what is offered where and how that experience aligns with what you want for your vacation is so important. So researching, and if you have a Smart Moms agent, you're going to get a lot of dining resources where we kind of walk you through, break down all of the different options that there are even. And so you kind of can eliminate options before you have to dive too deeply into ones that you're considering. But just something as simple as like a take this, not that thing for my family would be take Skipper Canteen, not Cinderella's Royal Table. And that's at Magic Kingdom. So kind of looking at it as a this, not that scenario when you're planning your trip and knowing why for your family is going to be hugely important because you don't want to not realize that something is there and then miss out on a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your number one Just pick one and maybe not even give me a reason why. What is your number one table service in any park, Stacy?
Tusker House
Ooh, at Animal Kingdom with the
at
character.
Animal Kingdom. Yep. If you're gonna open it up, I have all the choices. Let's go Tusker House.
Ooh, I do like that. Becki?
Oh, that might be the hardest question you have ever asked me. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say one I don't know that I have ever really talked in depth about. I truly love the beer garden in the Germany Pavilion of Epcot.
Yeah, that one is good. That one is really good.
It's so good for my allergies. The detail they go into on the menu, like, hello, pretzel bread and beer cheese.
Yeah. Um, okay, and I'm gonna answer it myself, and I think I'm gonna say Yak and Yeti. Just really good quality food.
Good choice.
Really, really good. And it's an Animal Kingdom, like we said. And I talked about it a lot. Maybe I'm craving that type of food right now because I've given that a lot of love today.
Well, and that's what's so I hate these favorite questions because today it's this, and
I know.
another day it may be something else.
That's what's
I
so
really,
fun because it's like apparently today, if I had dining, I would try to make it to Animal Kingdom every day to eat a Yak and Yeti. I don't know, like
right, right.
as I'm craving it right.
I will get caught up in not telling the same thing tomorrow. Like I just switch it up. I'm sorry, guys. I do.
Yeah. And that's what's so fun. Nobody can come back and say, Allie, on a previous episode, you said this was your favorite. And today you said this was your favorite. What's the truth? Like, you can't hold us to that kind of stuff because we really do. I mean, we are brutally honest about the things we don't love. So if we love one thing more than another on any given day, I think that's okay.
And you asked the question as in park. Like that completely changes my answer is if
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
I cannot let the Disney dining episode go by and not talk more about Trattoria Al Forno. Like that is not allowable.
Yeah, we did it. We did. Yeah. Shout out to Trattoria over on the boardwalk. Becki and I love it. Get the lasagna and a glass of red wine. Okay, let's recap. If you're planning a trip to Disney, dining is going to matter. It's going to be a huge part of your planning. It's going to be a huge part of your day to day. And it can make or break your experience, honestly. I mean, maybe not for your family, that's a broad statement, but it can. Number one, understand the basics in lingo and the types of reservations and food options there are. Number two, understanding your timelines, how you're going to get to a reservation based on the day you have laid out and when you can make your reservation. Number three, knowing the hard to get ADRs, advanced dining reservations. Which restaurants do you need to prioritize that may be difficult to get that mean a lot to you? Number four, familiarize yourself with the My Disney Experience app. That is where you are going to go to make your dining reservations and create your mobile orders, as well as view menus, hours, and pricing. Number five, deciding if you should get the dining plan, and if that answer is yes, which dining plan should you get? Number six, allergies and dietary restrictions. If you have them, do not be scared. Take the necessary steps to have Disney know that you're going to be there with an allergy, either when you make your reservation or ahead of your trip, so that you don't have to worry at all. That should not be a stressor on your vacation. Number seven, there is great quality dining at resorts, including character meals that you can eat at, quick service included, even if you are not a resort guest at that specific resort. Number eight, do not overlook Disney Springs when it comes to your dining plans. It may not be the number one place to go for every single family. You may be overlooking it as an experience, but if you're a foodie, I would not consider going there for dining. Number nine, know which quick service options are in each park, as well as which ones your family may like so that you can prioritize them. And number 10, the flip side of that coin, which table service options are in each park? How can you best strategize for your day? Are the characters at the meal in the morning or at night? And really start to stack things and build things together so that you can even book lightning lanes at a more strategized approach. If you do all of that, you're going to have a great dining experience. If you have a Smart Moms agent, they're going to do all that with you and you're going to have an even better dining experience. And having a good dining experience is super important to your trip as a whole. I hope this episode was so helpful and that you take these 10 tips and you really dive into them deeper. If you have any questions, follow-up, things you need to know that we didn't cover regarding any of these things today, hop over into any of our social media communities. Follow us on Instagram at Smart Moms Plan Disney Podcast, or Go to Facebook, search the Smart Moms Plan Disney podcast, join us there and ask any of your questions that you may have regarding dining or anything else for your trip planning so we can pop in and help make it more clear for you. That is going to do it for us this time on the Smart Moms Plan Disney podcast. And until next time, we'll see you real soon.